Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I welcome you to this digital event celebrating the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission's 25th anniversary. The conference will focus on the development of the sector in Cyprus, as well as the future of financial services in a time of great challenges and opportunities, and has been therefore aptly given the title CySEC 25 Years. The past, present and future of financial development and innovation, and will highlight the milestones that have marked the development of CySEC and the growth of the sector it supervises. From 1996 onwards, the Cyprus capital market has experienced significant growth, and the number of new groups placed under its supervision, as well as supervised entities offering services in Cyprus, has multiplied. At the same time, the role and supervisory responsibilities of CySEC have been significantly expanded and upgraded to ensure investor protection in an ever-changing financial landscape. Let us now watch a video outlining the 25-year anniversary of CySEC.
The Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission is the independent public supervisory authority of the securities market, one of the three authorities that regulate the financial sector in Cyprus. 2021 marks the 25 years of CySEC's presence.
In these 25 years, progress has been remarkable. From 1996 onwards, the Cyprus capital market has experienced significant growth.
The regulator's supervisory remit has widened substantially in these years to include new groups of supervised firms and products. Today, it supervises more than 790 entities, recording an increase of 217% since 2011. In addition to the stock exchange, its markets and the issuers of securities. These include the investment firms, the administrative service providers, the management companies, and collective investment funds, and very soon, crypto exchanges. In this vein, the role and supervisory responsibilities of CySEC have been significantly expanded and upgraded to ensure investor protection in an ever-changing financial landscape. CySEC looks to actively support new financial technology products, services, and infrastructure projects, particularly those that can themselves finance startups offering innovative products. To this end, CySEC has established an innovation hub in 2018 to explore the growth and uses of financial and regulatory technology. Since the country's accession to the European Union in 2004, the national securities market legal framework was fully and promptly harmonized with all the latest EU directives and regulations. Among others, CySEC has pressed ahead for the completion of a comprehensive regulatory framework for the collective investment and asset management sector as an alternative form of financing the real economy.
It has been the strong belief of the government and of the Ministry of Finance that the development of the capital markets and the opportunities they provide can only be achieved with strong supervision of the sector and good market conduct. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Finance has been actively supporting all efforts of CySEC to enhance its capabilities, either through the enactment of legislation for the capital markets or through the significant enhancement of CySEC's capacity with resources and personnel. We commit to this close cooperation and support for the years to come.
Due to the very diverse and sophisticated market participants, CySEC keeps up to date with the best supervisory practices.
We have built and applied a risk-based supervision philosophy which dictates our priorities. The rule that governs what we do is that the entities and market segments which pose greater risks to the market will be subject to the closest scrutiny.
Over the last 25 years, CySEC was gradually granted new, increased, and expanded powers. As a result, it now has at its disposal the necessary dissuasive and repressive tools to ensure the regulatory compliance of the supervised entities. CySEC places great emphasis on the financial education, professionalism, innovation, as well as the standard of services offered by the entities we supervise and their employees. From 2015, all compliance officers of CIFs and traders have been obliged to pass specialized exams and to be continuously educated on regulatory matters. In 2020, these requirements were extended to cover also the AML compliance officers and soon the financial information providers of CIFs.
This has increased the level of professionalism in the sector and heightened market confidence and efficiency.
At the same time, CySEC advocates the need for public education in financial matters. To this end, it undertakes various educative actions and initiatives through publications on its website and the media. Also, it advocates for the introduction of financial education in schools. Through the years, the regulator's structure was expanded and new departments were created to meet its growing responsibilities and the development of the sector. From a staff of just 1 employee in 1996, CySEC now employs 121 professionals covering a wide range of specializations in finance, accounting, law, and programming. Throughout the years, CySEC maintained close cooperation and exchange of assistance, expertise, and best practices with other national competent authorities worldwide. To this end, CySEC has signed 22 bilateral memoranda of understanding and cooperation with supervisory authorities and other bodies, and 51 bilateral MOUs with supervisory authorities outside the EU, based on the European Directive on Alternative Investment Fund Managers. CySEC is an active member of the ESMA and IOSCO. The vision of CySEC and most earnest duty is to enhance the Cypriot securities market to make it one of the safest and most reliable investment destinations in Europe.
Dimitra Kalogiru, Chairwoman of the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission, for her opening address.
Dear Excellencies, Minister of Finance, Mr. Konstantinos Petridis, and European Commissioner of Financial Stability, Financial Services and the Capital Markets Union, Mrs. McGuinness, honorable guests, good morning. It is my distinct honor and high privilege to welcome you all to the 25th anniversary digital event to celebrate an important milestone in Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission's history. I want to thank you all for taking the time from your busy schedules to join us for this notable occasion. Over a period of 25 years, progress has been remarkable. From 1996, when CySEC was initially established and onwards, the investment sector has experienced significant growth, contributing to the wider financial services sector and the Cypriot economy. Until 2000, there were only 2 laws in place governing the securities market and the Cyprus Stock Exchange. In these first years, the CySEC had only 4 employees and its powers were very limited. The country's accession to the European Union in 2004 and the harmonization of national legislation with the European acquis played a pivotal role and led to the modernization of the regulatory and supervisory framework of the investment sector by integrating it into the European family. In addition, CySEC eagerly promoted the prompt harmonization of the national securities market legal framework with the latest EU directives and regulations. As a result, the regulatory and supervisory landscape in Cyprus now mirrors that of the rest of the EU. Today, CySEC is an independent public supervisory authority with all the necessary tools to ensure the regulatory compliance of the entities under its supervision. Over time, the regulator's organizational structure has been expanded and new departments have been created to meet its growing responsibilities and the development of the sector. Among the new departments that have been created are the Policy Department, the Risk-Based and Statistics, the AML Department, Human Resources, and Internal Audit. CySEC now employs 121 permanent professionals and another 10 professionals with contractual arrangements, covering a wide range of specializations in finance, accounting, international relations, HR, law, and programming. This September, we are recruiting additional permanent employees to fill our organizational needs effectively, tripling CySEC staff since 2011. Moreover, in 2020, the number of the non-executive members of the organization's board was increased from 3 to 5 to facilitate the creation of an audit risk committee in order to follow the good governance procedures. During these formative years, the steady support of the government, especially the Ministry of Finance and the House of Representatives, was fundamental for the significant growth of CySEC and the investment sector. A few words about our market. As you can see from the graph, new groups of entities were included under CySEC supervision. This marked an important step to fulfill the vision and mission of CySEC to establish the Cyprus securities market as one of the safest, most reliable destinations for investment and effective supervision to ensure investor protection and the healthy development of the market. We continue to seek to achieve this vision and the growth in our capital market by fostering trust through responsibility, innovation, and education. The increase in the number of supervised entities over 219% from 2011 to 2021 is indicative of the growing interest in Cyprus as a destination of investment services. Today, CySEC supervises 790 entities compared to 247 in 2011, while more than 100 applications are in process of being granted a license. In its early days, CySEC was only supervising the Cyprus Stock Exchange and its listed securities of the local issuers in terms of transparency towards their shareholders, approving prospectuses for raising capital through IPOs and secondary issues, mergers and acquisitions, and surveilling on market abuse issues. Following the transposition of the Transparency Directive in 2007, issuers with Cyprus as their home member state, which have securities listed on regulated markets within the European Union, also came under the supervision of CySEC. Along the way, the regulated entities were enriched with a multilateral trading facility, the emerging companies market operated by the stock exchange, while its listed securities are now supervised only for market abuse purposes. The adoption of MiFID I in 2007 and MiFID II in 2018 led to the development of new and established investment firms providing different financial services across Europe and around the world, resulting in a significant development of the investment services sector and escaping from the narrow local character. For example, many Cypriot investment firms are now part of the fintech evolution, creating a unique financial sector ecosystem that has enhanced economic growth and employment in Cyprus. The transactions of the Cyprus investment firms have reached now 9 trillion, being among the first markets in Europe in 2020. Since 2012, CySEC is supervising the administrative service providers, which are active in the provision of corporate services only in terms of money laundering issues. Their total assets reach around 377 million in 2020. And in addition, over the last 8 years, we have developed an established collective investment funds industry, which has as a priority to finance the real economy in new ways. As a result, new supervisory groups came under the mandate of CySEC, such as UCITS and their management companies, the alternative investment funds and their management companies, registered alternative funds, and mini managers. the funds that are under management have increased by 263% since 2016, reaching almost 10 billion. Now we'll give you some insight about the new developments that the Securities Commission is planning. In addition, a draft law is currently being prepared and it is on consultation until July 20 regarding the supervision of companies that undertake the administration of alternative funds, that is the fund administrators. The target is for the House of Representatives to enact the new national law by next year. CySEC is also reviewing the permissible investment strategies for fund managers and the applicable rules, focusing on the area of loan origination and loan participation. Furthermore, CySEC is also in the process of registering the crypto asset service providers that will be supervised mainly in terms of money laundering. This, of course, will expand even further the supervised entities of CySEC and therefore increase the need to have the necessary resources and expertise. Recently, we have issued our directive concerning cryptos, and we will prepare the relevant applications by September this year. CySEC is also responsible for the creation and maintenance of the trust register, in which information as to the UBOs of the express trust and other legal arrangements similar to trust must be included. CySEC has recently published the relevant directive, which includes, among others, registration procedures, access, and fees to the register. The registry is expected to be operational last quarter of the year. Finally, we had a consultation paper to change our fiduciary national law in order to register also the promoters of applications that engage in the submission and promotion of applications for the granting of a license to a regulated entity of CySEC. This regulatory initiative is expected to enhance the use of anti-money laundering procedures when promoting investments and ultimately increase the quality of services provided to regulated entities. We will move to the Innovation Hub. As a part of its mandate, CySEC strives to actively support new financial technology, products, services, and infrastructure projects, particularly those that can help finance the real economic's growth and demonstrate their commitment to the investor protection through good governance. To achieve this, CySEC established an Innovation Hub in September 2018 to explore the growth and uses of fintech developments like blockchain, virtual currencies, crypto exchanges, and DLT, and of course, RegTech solutions that may help the market participants to be more compliant. Currently, we are looking into the possibility of transforming this Innovation Hub into a regulatory sandbox. In this controlled environment, fintech startups and other entities can test their innovative products or services in real conditions under the regulator's supervision. We are moving to the supervision and education, which is very important for CySEC. Due to this very diverse and sophisticated market I already explained, and in an ever-changing financial environment, CySEC keeps up to date with the best supervisory practices to ensure investor protection. From 2015, we have built and applied a risk-based supervision philosophy which dictates our priorities. The rule that governs what we do is that the entities and market segments which pose the greater risks to the market will be subject to the closest scrutiny. During 2013 economic crisis in Cyprus, CySEC had acted as a catalyst in restoring confidence among investors and local and international stakeholders. CySEC worked intensively to investigate cases related to the events that led to the banking crisis, resulting in the imposition of approximately 11 million euros in fines on the banking sector and close to 20 million euros in fines and settlements on the rest of the supervised entities for other infringements. Our efforts to eliminate incidents of non-appropriate conduct of business and AML infringements is also evidenced by the actions we took in the form of license withdrawals, public announcements, reprimands, and the issuance of circulars regarding market practices. Specifically, between 2015 and 2021, we suspended more than 25 companies, closed down more than 13 companies, and banned individuals from operating in the sector up to 10 years. From 2013 until today, CySEC also sent 34 cases to the Attorney General of the Republic to investigate possible criminal offenses by regulated entities. Moreover, as ESMA's intervention measures on the retail CFD sector and other major legislative changes that we undertook since 2015, we have resulted in the fundamental reform in the standards of conduct of business by SIFs. Our aim is for a stronger, safer, and more responsible market, both in Cyprus and across Europe. We look forward. CySEC's main goal in 2021 and onwards is to develop procedures and the methodology to conduct data-driven supervision, which will allow it to identify any regulators and risks in the market at an early stage in order to be more proactive. CySEC also places great emphasis on the financial education, innovation, as well as the standard of services offered by the professionals of the industry. Since 2015, CySEC has ensured key position employees are certified and continuously educated on regulatory issues. I believe that this has increased the level of professionalism in the sector and the market confidence and market efficiency. In 2020, these requirements were extended to cover also the AML compliance officers, and by the end of the year, new exams will be in place for the financial information providers of regulated entities. The smooth operation of the financial sector and investor protection is backed by a sound legal framework, but also by the ability of each investor to individually assess the risks and rewards included in the different investment options. In this end, CySEC undertakes various educative actions and initiatives through publications on its website and the media. Indicatively, CySEC has a full list of all the companies it regulates on its website and regularly updates its warnings page with the most recent information we have on prevalent scams and possible criminal operators. Furthermore, in 2015, CySEC participated in the preparation of the legislation of the establishment of the Financial Ombudsman of Cyprus for the out-of-court settlement of disputes between SIFs and their clients, while in 2018, it completely reformed the operation of the Investor Compensation Fund, an additional safety net for the SIF clients. CySEC also advocates for the introduction of financial education in schools. We have studied examples from other countries and we have submitted specific proposals to the government for the creation of a national strategy to address financial illiteracy, which includes the introduction of a financial education course in schools. Since December 2020, CySEC is a member of the ad hoc committee for drafting of Cyprus' national policy for promoting financial literacy. Moving to the international cooperation, throughout the years, and especially in today's globalized and highly interlinked financial market, CySEC has maintained close collaboration and exchange of assistance and expertise and best practices with other national competent authorities in Europe and worldwide. To this end, CySEC has signed the ESMA and IOSCO MOUs, as well as 24 bilateral MOUs with supervisory authorities and other bodies, and 51 bilateral MOUs with supervisory authorities outside the EU based on the European Directive of Alternative Investment Fund Managers. CySEC is also an active member of the ESMA and IOSCO and remains committed to cooperate closely and participate in the advancement of supervisory regulation, compliance, and convergence through the European financial markets. CySEC also participates in the negotiations of ESMA and European securities regulators with the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, and the agreed non-deal Brexit MOU. In addition, in order to ensure a smooth post-Brexit transition period for the UK companies that provide investment services exclusively to professional clients and eligible counterparties in Cyprus, we have established a temporary licensing regime until the end of this year. Moving to COVID-19, capital markets have shown resilience, I would say, in the midst of the pandemic. They have an important role to play in economic recovery, providing effective alternatives to bank financing. As a result, the completion of the Capital Markets Union is becoming increasingly imperative, and it is expected to create additional growth prospects for local capital markets and improve access to finance for businesses. The Capital Markets Union has given impetus to wider cooperation across the EU, enabling investors to raise and manage funds, as well as receiving related services from more efficiently and join equivalent levels of protection in all EU countries. The national crowdfunding regime, which has been introduced last year by CySEC, facilitates capital raising up to 5 million euros, for which there is no requirement to publish a prospectus in accordance with the prospectus regulation. Also, the regulation on European crowdfunding service providers is expected to enter into force this coming November. In addition, under the Capital Markets Union, the prospectus regulation has mobilized greater access to financial markets for companies and especially the SMEs. Furthermore, building on the measures already taken under the first CMU action plan to enhance promoting the SME growth markets, the existing rules allow for more proportionate treatment of SMEs without impairing market integrity and investor protection. Listing on stock exchanges can give a significant boost to small and medium enterprises, including a reduced dependence on bank funding, a broader investor base, easier access to additional equity capital and debt finance, and a higher public profile and brand recognition. The COVID-19 crisis severely altered the EU's economic landscape, and there is therefore a continuous need to renewed ambition to support the financing of smaller companies and innovative scale-ups. At a pan-European level, redirection to capital flows to financial products focused on sustainable investment is already being sought with the implementation of the disclosures regulation, the SFTR, in March this year, on the information that must be provided by the investment firms and the investment fund management companies to the investors regarding sustainable investments they make, and the taxonomy regulation that defines what is considered as a sustainable investment will expect a significant increase in green investments and green funds. CySEC has created a dedicated section on its website on sustainable finance in order to inform the market participants. Fighting against greenwashing is not an easy target. Mrs. McGuinness will give you an insight on this subject in her speech later on. Closing, I hope that I have given you a general overview of the Commission's remarkable progress during these 25 years. Before the moderator opens the floor to our distinguished honorable guests, kindly permit me to pay tribute to the chairman, vice chairman, and members of the boards of the Commission who have served through these 25 years, contributing to the development of the investment services sector and with their expertise and professionalism. Last but not least, I would like to express my utmost gratitude to the staff of the Commission. Their dedication, commitment, and hard work has led to the remarkable growth of the organization through these 25 years. CySEC has the experience, the determination, and the people to make the difference and push toward the further upgrading and development of the investment services sector, contributing to the Cyprus economy. Thank you all for honoring us today with your presence on this special event that we have. And I give the floor to Melanie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kalogiru. The government's vision for the investment services sector will now be presented by the Minister of Finance of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Konstantinos Petridis.
Dear friends, it is indeed my great pleasure to attend and welcome you all to this online conference with the theme of the 25 years of CySEC, its past, present, and future of financial development and innovation. I'm sure that should circumstances had been different, CySEC would have organized a different event where we would be able to join in person, but it is important to make the most of any situation and move forward. This forward course has been followed by CySEC in the past 25 years. From a very modest beginning with a few employees back in 1996 to a robust organization of around 120 employees and more than 40 expected to be joining the Commission by the end of the year. Looking back at the history of CySEC, it is my view that the defining moment for the capital markets in Cyprus has been the accession of the country to the EU. As a member of the EU, Cyprus enjoys significant advantages, most notably a solid legal framework that evolves according to the circumstances, with efforts and contribution of the European bodies and member states. The Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, the Markets Abuse Directive, the Transparency Directive, and the plethora of other legal acts and instruments that regulate prudential supervision, collective investment schemes, and all aspects of capital markets have been definitely instrumental in the development of the market in Cyprus. Membership in the European Union and the adherence to a common rule book has given investors in Cyprus regulated entities such as investment firms, opportunities, and access to the European Union market, which is of the utmost importance. Being part of the European Union provides also security for future challenges in the financial development and innovation. The proposals for a market in crypto assets regulation and the proposal for a regulation on digital operational resilience for the financial sector currently under discussion are typical responses of the Union in changing circumstances that could guard capital markets from risks, but also provide opportunities for sustainable development. Being part of the EU family also makes us part of the long-term project for a capital markets union that would provide opportunities for financing and investment in our economies. European privileges also, of course, come with obligations. The legal framework without strong supervision and enforcement is of no use. It is almost counterintuitive, but a strong capital market can only exist where everybody plays by the same rules. The investors are protected, and fraudulent or illegal activity is thwarted promptly and decisively. It is this vital role that CySEC has been called upon to fulfill, a task that is not easy at all. The government and the Ministry of Finance are well aware of this vital role of the supervisory authority, and for this reason, CySEC was one of the very few organizations in the broader public sector where the moratorium on hirings and job creation was not applied to during the economic consolidation program in 2013 onwards. Hirings and job creation continued during this period, with permanent posts increasing from 52 in CySEC's 2014 budget to 172 in the budget of 2021. What is my vision of CySEC for the future? I do envision CySEC to continue its open door policy with the regulated entities so that there is a good understanding of the evolving market, but also opportunity to provide the appropriate guidance. The introduction of the Innovation Hub is a demonstration of this forward-looking approach by CySEC. At the same time, the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission should strive to enhance its abilities and methods so that it serves in the best possible way its primary role, that of the supervisor of the financial sector. This can only be achieved with efforts for supervisory excellence and no tolerance to illegal and fraudulent activity. Policies should strive for the establishment of a market structure with robust and well-governed entities, exhibiting strong market conduct away from opportunistic behavior. It is also my view that the supervision in the financial sector would be further augmented in the near future with the use of technology and data analytics.
The Ministry of Finance and the government in general will continue to support all efforts by CySEC, as well as of the European Union, that would foster supervisors in the framework they operate in. I take this opportunity to thank personally the professionals and investors from abroad who have shown their trust in Cyprus. Today, I can offer a renewed commitment that the efforts to achieve sustainable growth, to maintain sound public finances, to promote reforms will not only be maintained, but it will be enhanced. The pandemic has demonstrated once again that responsible conduct in good times is vital preparation for more challenging times. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank CySEC's chairwoman, Dimitra Kalogiru, for her sustained efforts for almost 10 years as the head of the supervisory authority, where she has worked tirelessly for the establishment of a modern and robust supervisor. The same, of course, applies to all board members of CySEC, present and past. Dear ladies and gentlemen, once again, I would like to thank you for your presence, and I welcome you in today's conference. Thank you.
Let us now hear from the chairman of Invest Cyprus, Mr. Michalis P. Michail, for his welcome address.
Sorry, there was a technical problem. On behalf of Invest Cyprus, I would like to welcome you all and thank you for being with us to this important event of celebrating the 25 years of important development of CySEC, with the highlights of the past, present, and future of financial development and innovation. I would like to thank CySEC for the kind invitation. It is an honor and a real pleasure to be addressing such a distinguished audience. For Invest Cyprus and Cyprus's foreign investors, the role of CySEC is crucial and continues to gain more and more importance. This role of properly regulating financial services and investment firms, asset managers, investment funds and fiduciaries in Cyprus, with active representation at the European and global level, enables CySEC to be a true catalyst for economic development in Cyprus and through Cyprus in other high-growth markets. Invest Cyprus has been, since the early stages, at the forefront of all efforts to develop this sector and foster Cyprus's appeal as a modern and promising investment funds jurisdiction, a long process that has borne fruit and presents an even more positive future outlook. Having created, with the support of the private sector, the Cyprus Investment Funds Association, we started a collective effort with all stakeholders, Invest Cyprus, CySEC, the Ministry of Finance, and the local private industry, to develop Cyprus into a key regional domicile for setting up investment funds and establishing asset management companies for pan-European reach, offering investors a unique set of competitive advantages. We are collaborating closely and supporting the development of the financial services and funds industry in Cyprus, and we have dedicated a large number of our resources towards this direction, keeping the sector amongst our highest priorities. Determined to stay at the forefront of industry developments and continuously upgrading its legislative and regulatory regime, Cyprus has witnessed impressive growth in this sector, with a continuously increasing number of internationally recognized fund service providers established on the island. The upgrading of the relevant AIF's regulatory framework, the establishment of RAIFs, the setting up of the Innovation Hub, the upcoming legislation on fund administration, the adoption of the recent EU directives of sustainability disclosures are important milestones taken to facilitate the further development of the sector with best practices and standards respecting fully the EU and international rules and regulations. In this regard, it would be an omission not to extend my sincerest thanks and congratulations to CySEC as our national competent authority, and especially its chairwoman, Mrs. Dimitra Kalogiru, and her team for the excellent work she is doing from the first day that she took office, and for an excellent collaboration in expanding Cyprus's funds and asset management industry in terms of size, reputation, and attractiveness. Dear guests, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020 has recorded a positive growth in the fund and asset management industry, much higher than the EU average, with Cyprus being an EU leader in terms of the percentage increase in the number of funds domiciled, while there is increased investor interest. As Invest Cyprus, the state-owned organization responsible for shaping and implementing the official policies of the government on investment affairs, as well as promoting and attracting and facilitating FDI into our country, our team is at the forefront of all efforts towards promoting and enhancing the image of Cyprus as an attractive investment destination abroad in all sectors with potential. We welcome and facilitate investments across sectors with main focus, the investment funds and asset management, and the regional headquartering of tech companies due to the plethora of incentives offered, including provision for non-EU specialized talent to be able to easily work in Cyprus. I would like to emphasize here the significant headquartering and relocation of several fintech companies that took place in Cyprus during the pandemic. Worth mentioning is also the establishment of a modernized projects bank called Tourinvest Strategic Projects, which lists an array of projects and attractive investment opportunities that are open to investors. Beyond investment promotion and FDI attraction, we work in close collaboration with all ministries and the private stakeholders, acting as a bridge between investors and government authorities, and providing all necessary elements to facilitate new investments. Lastly, our threefold mandate includes the continuous monitoring of the developments in international FDI best practices, as well as understanding of the needs of existing and potential foreign investors in an effort to advise the government on the introduction of new or amended FDI-related incentives, which would further enhance the country's attractiveness. Driving new sectors has always been a key priority for us. The funds sector in Cyprus has not only recorded impressive growth, but has without doubt developed to a key economic driver and contributes significantly to the country's growth path. And CySEC's role and contribution to this is of immense importance. At Invest Cyprus, we do believe that the most important advantage of Cyprus is its ability to constantly adjust, reform, modernize, and innovate in order to establish sustainability and reinforce competitiveness. But equally important, its resilience to adverse global economic factors affecting our economy, which allows immediate reaction and recovery. With CySEC's important role, the government support, and the private sector's strong collaboration, we are all working together in further enriching Cyprus's position in the global investment map. In closing, I would like to wish CySEC many more successful years for the benefit of our economy and our country's repositioning of its brand name in general, and wish you all a successful event ahead. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Mikhail. Mairead McGuinness has served as the European Commissioner for Financial Stability, Financial Services and the Capital Markets Union since October 2020. A member of Fine Gael, she has also served as First Vice President of the European Parliament since 2017. She served as a member of the European Parliament for East from 2004 to 2014 and has served as MEP for Midlands Northwest since 2014, making her Ireland's longest-serving MEP. In the European Parliament, she sat with the European People's Party. Let us hear her keynote speech.
A very good afternoon. My thanks to the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission for this invitation, where we're addressing the past, the present and the future of financial development and innovation. There are two key priorities for the von der Leyen Commission: the European Green Deal and the digital transition. And financial services will play a key part in both transitions, ensuring that finance is available to make those big economic and societal changes. I want to start by congratulating the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission on their 25th anniversary. Since your creation, you've supervised an impressive development of the financial sector in Cyprus. I would also like to give my full support for the focus today on innovation and the agenda to create a robust ecosystem for financial services in Cyprus. This should ensure that financial firms can flourish responsibly in Cyprus and investors are well protected too. This past year and a half has not been easy. We've faced a global pandemic that's put huge strain on society, the economy, and of course the healthcare system. But we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel and can start now to look towards a post-pandemic Europe while remaining cautious about new variants of COVID. The focus now is on the economic recovery, but also thinking about and preparing for the Europe we want for the future. And as we rebuild, we have a chance to address problems that the pandemic has exposed. For example, we've seen very clearly that our economies and societies are not sufficiently resilient. If they were, COVID would not have had such a tragic impact in terms of human life and illness, as well as significant economic impacts. We've been reminded in a very stark way that we cannot ignore the natural world and our impact on it. Before the pandemic, we were beginning to get real about climate change and environmental degradation. We know that we need to build a more sustainable, greener world. From the perspective of the financial services sector, that's vital as climate change is also a financial stability risk. The European Central Bank and the European Systemic Risk Board highlighted this very recently, warning that global GDP could fall by 20% by the end of this century if we do not mitigate climate change effectively. Investment in unsustainable assets is increasingly likely to become stranded, and financial institutions need to identify and manage these risks. They also need to allocate huge amounts of money to the transition to climate neutrality. We estimate that Europe will need around €350 billion of extra investment annually just to meet our 2030 emission targets in the energy system alone. And there is an additional funding required of €130 billion for our other environmental goals. Now, that is a huge amount of money, although, of course, inaction would be even more costly. The European Green Deal aims to make the EU climate neutral by 2050 by supporting green jobs, green growth and green investment. And the financial system has a key role to play to support a green economy. Just last week, the Commission adopted a strategy for financing the transition to a sustainable economy, accompanied by a proposal for a European green bond standard. And this is part of a broader package to achieve our climate targets by identifying what is sustainable through our EU taxonomy and ensuring that money flows towards long-term sustainable investments. There are 4 pillars to our strategy: transition, inclusiveness, resilience, and the global perspective. And first, this strategy will help the economy transition to sustainability. We want more support for the intermediate steps. So we are considering an intermediate taxonomy to complement the existing green taxonomy. And this would allow us to develop transition bonds. The strategy will also build a more inclusive sustainable finance framework. And that means taking along SMEs and retail investors. So we are exploring green mortgages and green loans. And we're looking too at social investments, going beyond climate. As I've said, climate change is a financial stability risk. So the third part of our strategy looks at how to improve the financial sector's resilience and how the sector itself can contribute to sustainability. And to this end, the strategy looks at whether to review the macroprudential toolbox for supervisors. And it will ensure that ESG risks are managed in the prudential frameworks for banks and insurers. And this includes regular climate stress testing by both supervisors and financial institutions. The transition must happen on all fronts. Financial institutions should translate EU sustainability goals into their long-term financing strategies, decision-making processes, and public disclosures. The fight against greenwashing represents another challenge for the European Union and our financial system. We will enable supervisors to help address this issue by assessing whether their powers, capabilities, and obligations are fit to protect investors and consumers against greenwashing. And finally, but really importantly, the strategy looks at the global picture, making sure that the international work is both coherent and ambitious. And the European Union is leading in the area of sustainable finance, but we want to get more countries to come on board with us, because Europe alone will not solve the climate crisis. And we're looking forward to COP26 in Glasgow in November, where climate finance will be top of the agenda. This pandemic has demonstrated in a very stark way that our societies and our economies are not resilient or sustainable enough. And during this crisis, technology has really shown its potential, keeping us connected and allowing us to continue business and personal transactions. The pace of digitalisation has accelerated, including in finance. Online identity verification has enabled consumers to open accounts and use financial services at a distance. A growing proportion of in-store payments are now digital and contactless. Fintech solutions have helped to broaden and speed up access to loans, including loans in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Last September, the Commission adopted a digital finance strategy to examine how the European Union can support the digital transformation of finance while managing the risks. And this strategy sets out 4 strategic priorities. First, to tackle fragmentation in the digital single market for financial services. Right now, digital finance is still too national. Addressing this would help European consumers access cross-border services and European financial firms to scale up their digital operations. Our second priority is to ensure that the European Union regulation enables innovation. New technologies could improve financial services for both businesses and consumers. And regulation should make sure that innovation is accompanied by responsibility. And third, to create a European financial data space. We want to promote innovation driven by data. And this will enable new products for consumers and businesses. And it will support broader policy goals, such as building a single market for data. It will also help enable access to the data we need to make sure that investment is sustainable. And fourth, we need to address new challenges and risks. As digital finance grows, so do cyber risks. We want consumers and business to benefit from new technologies, but national supervisors and regulators can benefit as well. RegTech solutions help regulated bodies to comply more effectively and efficiently with their obligations. The Commission supports the uptake of innovative tools to facilitate supervisory reporting. And subtech solutions help national regulators deal with the challenges of supervising new investment products. Small regulators, in particular, have a lot to gain from subtech solutions because they can optimise their capacity and have a better use of resources. So this is an area where the Commission is supportive as well. In addition, the Commission, together with the European supervisory authorities, plans to develop a strategy on supervisory data. And this will help ensure that supervisory reporting requirements are unambiguous, aligned and suitable for automated reporting. It will allow full use to be made of international standards and identifiers, including the legal entity identifier. And it will make sure supervisory data is reported in machine-readable electronic formats and is easy to process. This strategy will facilitate the use of RegTech tools for reporting and subtech tools for data analysis by authorities. It is a new and exciting era, especially for supervisors and markets willing to invest in technology and make the push towards sustainable investment. Let me conclude by returning to the crisis that we are emerging from. It has been difficult, but it is also, if you like, an opportunity as we look to the recovery. We can accelerate the transition towards a greener and digital world. The future of financial services is both sustainable and digital. I look forward to working together with regulators and industry as we enable and manage this transition. There is a long road ahead, and I count on your support. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all very fruitful discussions.
McGuinness. Let us now move on to the panel discussion titled The Market's Perspective for the Future of the Sector. I will now give the floor to Dr. George Theocharidis, who will be the moderator for today's panel discussion.
Dear Melanie, thank you for the introduction. So after the remarkable growth and progress of CySEC and investment sector presented by Mrs. Kalogiru and the interesting remarks from our honorable guest speakers, we will discuss now the market's perspective for the future of our sector. So I would like to introduce our distinguished guests on this panel, each representing a key segment of the market. So we have with us Mr. Marinos Christodoulidis, Chairman of the Cyprus Stock Exchange, Mr. Alexandros Glappas, Board Member of the Cyprus Financial Services Firms Association, Mr. Christoforos Koudourouchis, President of the Cyprus Fiduciary Association, Mr. Stavros Leptos, President of the Association of Cyprus Public Companies, Mr. Dimitris Taxidaris, Chairman of the Association of Cyprus International Financial Firms, and Mr. Andreas Yasemidis, President of the Cyprus Investment Funds Association. So each panelist will have 3 minutes to share his thoughts on the challenges and opportunities of the financial services sector in Cyprus. So I will start with Mr. Christodoulidis. The floor is yours. I think Mr. Christodoulidis, you're muted, so perhaps you should unmute your computer.
Yes, technology, yes. Thank you, Mr. Theocharidis. First of all, I'd like to, you can hear me now?
Very well.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to extend my appreciation and many thanks to CySEC for the invitation and to this important gathering. The future of the capital market and the financial sector in Cyprus looks to be very promising and at the same time very challenging for the future. Despite the difficult times that we are facing at present, it is considered that new challenges and opportunities will arise in the future for both market participants and investors. CySEC's role is extremely vital for the further development of the securities market in Cyprus. And as we have seen before, its achievements already accomplished, especially during the last decade, are very well recognized and highly appreciated by the financial community in Cyprus and abroad. CySEC will continue to play a prominent role for the further development of the capital market and of the financial sector in Cyprus. It is a very well-organized authority with capable and experienced personnel, parameters that are prerequisite for its easy adjustment to the continuously changing and challenging environment. CySEC also contributes very effectively to the advancement of Cyprus as a regional hub in the financial sector and the capital markets in general. CSE traditionally had a very close cooperation with its regulator. Indeed, in the very beginning of CySEC establishment many years ago, of course, CySEC had a participation in the CSE's council. Things have changed radically, of course, and at present the relationship continues with the interaction and cooperation of the Cyprus Stock Exchange with CySEC in a number of important areas, such as the daily operations of the CSE markets, disclosure and continuing obligations by the listed issuers and members, the adjustment to new EU directives and regulations, the proper surveillance of the market, and the adequate and real-time dissemination of regulated financial information. This important successful cooperation will undoubtedly continue in the future for mutual benefit and most importantly for the benefit of the financial community in Cyprus. Once again, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation, many thanks, as well as my warmest wishes to the chairwoman of CySEC, Mrs. Dimitra Kalogiru, the vice chairman, Mr. George Siocharidis, to the previous vice chairman, Mr. Andreas Andreou, and to all directors and personnel of CySEC for their valuable cooperation and assistance through the years. I wish you very success to today's event, and but more importantly, to all of your future plans.
Thank you, Mr. Christodoulidis. We'll now move on to Mr. Klapas. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you, Chairwoman. We are very glad to be being invited here today to participate among such distinguished panelists. The Cyprus Financial Services Firms Association has originally been established in 1996, over 25 years ago today. Back then we were known as the Cyprus Stock Exchange Members Association. Following a few years later and some European developments, we transitioned to our current structure and name. We are governed by a 7-board member team with aim to promote our members' interests as well as the industries collectively. Our main goal is to be the advocate of our members as well as a pillar of knowledge and professional development. We are very glad to be here today. We've mentioned that already. I think, panelists, I will give it back to you. We want to be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Klapa.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
We will move on to Mr. Koudurouchis. The floor is yours.
Thank you, George. On behalf of the Cyprus Fiduciary Association, let me extend our congratulations on the event of marking the 25 years of the Commission. Our association is not even a teenager compared to CySEC. Actually, we're completing our 10-year anniversary this year. So we represent all regulated Cyprus administrative service providers, regardless of whether they're regulated by the Commission, the Bar Association, or the accountants' professional body. Since for the past 10 years, and in particular after the banking crisis of 2013, we feel that the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission has been at the forefront of cleansing and leading the AML efforts in order to restore the faith in our system and in Cyprus being an internationally recognized business destination. There's been a lot of effort, and we've come a long way since then. There is no doubt that we still need quite a few steps in order to get to the desired level that will enable us to build on the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. We continually work with the Commission in order to raise the level of awareness and at the same time to improve the service offering to overseas investors who choose Cyprus as their main destination for their business plans. And at the same time, we work with all the stakeholders in order to promote our image and the reputation, which unfortunately, it seems that every few years we receive setbacks in that respect. As I said, we're very happy to be here in order to extend our congratulations to the Commission, and here's to the next 25 years.
Thank you, Mr. Goudurouchis. So we'll move on now to Mr. Leptos. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. CySEC plays a crucial role in establishing a safe investment environment in Cyprus, for Cyprus and for Cypriot and foreign investors, and should enjoy the full financial and other support of the government in the above role. Today, we can only praise CySEC and its chairman, Mrs. Kalogiru, of the remarkable work they have done. Our main, however, concern is the Cyprus Stock Exchange, being the basic platform for investment and capital market, which should be revived and brought up to date without any further delay. To this effect, fruitful meetings should be instigated urgently by the government with all parties involved. We should introduce all government bonds of any kind, as well as investment opportunities to the Cyprus Stock Exchange, i.e. semi-government organizations, such as Electricity Authority, insurance companies, banks, funds, high technology companies, startups, etc. We should also provide tax and other incentives for companies to join the Cyprus Stock Exchange, and should seek cooperation between the Cyprus Stock Exchange and other stock exchanges of Europe or other countries. This will fulfill the important purpose of creating conditions allowing the raising of funds by the listed companies, which we represent, through the Cyprus Stock Exchange as an alternative to loans. And in addition, in parallel, will offer a safe financial investment opportunities for investors. We have presently in Europe, if not worldwide, negative interest rates and billions, if not trillions, of investment capital which seeks safe and profitable investment opportunities, which will enhance the financing and sustainability of the economy of Cyprus. In this respect, we should introduce the Schengen visa and improved residence permit rules in Cyprus, and more incentives for companies, organizations, investments to come to Cyprus and establish their offices, headquartering. This is our chance to create a safe investment environment if we want to become European economic center ahead of other countries. We already have high technology, which should be advertised worldwide. We are located between 3 continents. We have excellent legal system and suitable, highly trained personnel to provide top financial services. The only thing needed is to proceed, and to this we should apply all our efforts without further delay. This is our vision for the future in financing, investments, and related services, and I hope that we will not remain only in words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leptos. Now we move on to Mr. Taxidaris. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Today we celebrate the 25th anniversary from CySEC establishment, so I would like to start by saying that what CySEC has achieved in recent years is quite unique for Cyprus. I personally have worked closely with CySEC, its officers, its chairwoman, the vice chairman, including the previous vice chairman, and probably more than anyone else and probably more than any other body, and I can confirm personally the commitment, persistence, hard work and efforts made by CySEC at all levels, actually, in promoting a healthy and thriving financial services industry and its participants. I am aware of the great efforts made at the European level and with other regulators, and occasionally the pressure exerted by other regulators. I have to also note that CySEC has managed to move on a thin line, balancing between growing the financial industry, its breadth and scale in Cyprus, while maintaining a decent level of regulation and enforcement, which are important for Cyprus's reputation as a jurisdiction. All firms and market participants regulated in Cyprus need and maintain substance in the country. This is extremely important. They employ people. They employ various seniorities of people. They relocate foreign nationals and their families on the island and they live and spend in this country. They rent or buy offices. They maintain technologies, transferring know-how to locals. They buy services from consultants, and they contribute to the country's GDP, assisting to the economic growth, especially in recent years. We are looking into the future with many opportunities and challenges at the same time in the horizon. I will name a few: effectively and actively supervising the market and its participants, which implies having resources and technology to utilize, diversifying the financial services industry in other areas of finance, while reducing dependency on single segments of the industry, improving Cyprus's reputation and image globally, and being up to date and introducing legislation which has to do with technological advances, including digital finance, crypto assets, which has happened recently, and so on and so forth. Lastly, I would like to thank all officers of CySEC, the previous vice chairman, Mr. Andreas Andreou, the non-executive directors, but mostly Mrs. Dimitra Kalogiru, the chairwoman, who is departing soon, and to wish her all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taxidaris. And finally, we move to Mr. Iasemidis. The floor is yours.
Thank you, George. It's a great pleasure for me to be part of this very interesting panel. And thank you very much for the invitation and IMH for organizing this event. 25 years of CySEC is indeed a great milestone that needs to be celebrated, it's important to mention that the financial services sector is one of our island's greatest success story, and CySEC play a vital role toward this. Trying to be concise, I have to say, as President of Cyprus Investment Fund Association, that to highlight the significant contribution of CySEC into the significant growth of the fund industry in Cyprus and towards the mission of CIFA to establish Cyprus as a reputable EU fund hub and attract international players in our country, as well as to create the appropriate ecosystem for all these players to operate. As years pass by, it's important to see that the efforts of CIFA combined with CySEC have certainly paid off, as Cyprus fund industry is considered one of the most dynamic and fastest growing sector of the Cyprus economy, and this could not be achieved without the continuous and outstanding collaboration that we have with CySEC over the years. On behalf of CIFA, I would like to express my appreciation to the chairwoman of CySEC, the current vice chairman, and the ex-vice chairman, Mr. Andreas Andreou, the board members, and as well as the officers and the staff of CySEC for their significant contribution towards establishing Cyprus as a reputable EU fund jurisdiction. Speaking about the growth of the industry, it should be mentioned that we are now at a very important level. We managed to have, as Ms. Kalogiru mentioned in the morning, almost 10 billion euro assets under management. This is a significant number, and as mentioned by the senior economist of EFAMA in one of our workshops organized by CIFA in order to educate further the industry players, Cyprus managed to have an outstanding growth rate, which was above our counterparts, including Central and European players such as Luxembourg and Ireland. This is a very important achievement. We are all feel proud for this, and CySEC contribution toward this was tremendous. The continuous growth of the fund industry will continue. I'm sure about this. In the future, we need to be updated regarding the latest development of the global fund industry. The global fund industry is a dynamic industry, and we need to make the proper amendment in order to continue offering a competitive legislation in Cyprus to attract further players here in Cyprus. I'm sure CySEC will be next to CIFA to make all the appropriate changes, and I'm sure that we will manage to achieve the medium target of CIFA to have more than 25 billion assets under management in Cyprus fund industry over the next 5 years. Once again, I would like to thank CySEC for the cooperation, and thank you all for your attention. George, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Yasemidi. Thank you all for your valuable perspectives. So now we will move on to the Q&A section. So the first question relates to technology and finance. So let me frame the question. So in the last decade, we have witnessed a dramatic proliferation in new technologies and an overall digitalization of the financial services sector. So let me name a few technologies such as fintech, regtech, subtech, artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, DLT, and so on. So I will address a question to Mr. Taxidaris and Mr. Klapas as representatives of the investment firm industry. So how, in your view, have these changes affected the sector, and how are they incorporated in the market participants' future plans? So let's start with Mr. Taxidaris.
Thank you, George. Indeed, the last decade saw dramatic changes in this area, and especially COVID era, the recent 1.5 years, accelerated and highlighted further this trend, actually. We observe that investment firms have become fully digitalized, and they operate in a contactless manner. They contact the client, they conduct business without, in a seamless manner, without any contact with the client directly or face-to-face contact. This gave them a competitive edge, obviously during the COVID era, and in every single part and operation of their business, they rely on technology, marketing, and reaching to end clients via digital channels and social media. KYC becomes eKYC. Account opening documents are all completed online. The provision of investment services, trading, brokerage are on dedicated platforms, digital platforms. Expert software is put in place to monitor callers and their conversations with clients. Reporting to clients is done electronically. Reporting to regulators is done via special software designed for that purpose. Transaction reporting as well. Best execution monitoring tools, market surveillance tools, CRS FATCA reporting, and so on. And amazingly, all this can happen not only using a PC, but also on a smartphone and a handset. So owing to all these developments, financial firms gradually became at large technology firms, actually, with a growing percentage of their staff being IT people, developers, digital marketeers, rather than the more traditional staff. A challenging, which is facing currently all these firms, has to do with sourcing eligible personnel and trained personnel in this area. Having said that, I need to note that at the same time, banks and the banking system are a challenge themselves. Banking regulators globally have to keep up with this change, and currently the banking system in various jurisdictions does not seem able and willing to support this technological advance and change and digital transformation. This is something that we need to ensure that it happens, because there are efforts, intense efforts by CySEC leading this transformation, but at the same time we need a healthy and supportive banking system in order to reach our targets. The heavy reliance on technology and the subsequent competitive edge for investment firms made them even more attractive and induced an increased interest recently and demand in this kind of structures. I have to note lastly that in response to these trends, CySEC gained a reputation of understanding and embracing technology and its advances in finance in recent years. One example is the setting up of the Innovation Hub. And a challenge would be to maintain this image and enhance it going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taxidaris, and let's hear also the view by Mr. Klapas.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I will echo a lot of my colleague has just mentioned right now, with a focus to the future, which I think the last 10 years have actually gave us a glimpse. We are only at the beginning. 4 topic areas where I think investors, intermediaries, and regulators really need to focus on, with 2 being megatrends. Number 1 is blockchain technologies. Blockchain technologies have such efficiencies that allow for intermediaries to become obsolete without the adequate investment in technology. This is something that we need to keep in mind going forward as peer-to-peer becomes prevalent in almost any subsector of the financial services industry. Number 2 is ESG. ESG will become ever more incorporated in every customer's expectation of its service. They will need more transparency and an assessment of the impact that they have with every purchase. Thirdly, a bit more current, as these are 2 more long-term trends, is fintech. A startup that builds from the ground up with machine learning, AI, and robotics has no problem with legacy systems and incorporating them in the new world. Their focus is mainly on better customer experience at a fraction of the cost. This is not a threat, this is innovation, and we need to encourage it. At the same time, we need to be aware, to be ahead, as regulators need to be ahead of the curve to make sure to be able to regulate such new approaches. Finally, and very importantly, is the threat of cyber. By becoming more digital and automated in our processes, outsourcing, moving to mobile platforms, web-based platforms, we leave windows of opportunity for intrusion. And cyber is a threat today, and it will be a much more prevalent threat in the future that we need to focus on. I will just say as a closing remark that the regulator has a role to play of fostering innovation, allowing competition, at the same time protecting the industry. This can all occur through efficient capital markets. If we have efficient capital markets, reallocation of capital can be as transparent and as seamless as possible. We, as an association, and our roots has always been at the core, working towards, with CySEC and the Cyprus Stock Exchange, towards this end. It's not a secret that our Cyprus Stock Exchange turnover is only at about 1% of what it was 20 years ago. The Cyprus Stock Exchange members today are not based exclusively on revenues from this operation. They have moved, obviously, to other streams. And as regulators and as market participants, we need to find ways to move forward to a more efficient capital market system. Closing, we would also like to thank again our close cooperation with Ms. Kalogiru, especially for the last years we've been able to contribute and shape regulation and laws as we came across them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Klappa. Thank you also, Mr. Taxidari, for your very valuable comments, which touches upon the importance of technology on the financial services firms, the opportunities that technology provides to the financial services industry, but also you've touched also upon the challenges that it can bring to this industry. So I will move now to the second question, which the second question relates to compliance in finance. And I will address this question to Mr. Koudurouchis and Mr. Taxidaris. So again, I will frame the question. So what do you think, how does the future hold for compliance amidst the stricter financial compliance requirements that we have and the technological developments, as we discussed about, and the digitalization trends that we observe today? And what we observe is that post-2008, post the global banking or financial crisis, we have seen an enormous increase in the importance of compliance in the financial services industry, whether it's related to AML or terrorist financing issues, or whether it's related to internal audits reports, compliance reports, and so on. So how do you see this trend moving forward? So I will start with Mr. Koudurouchis.
Thank you very much. First of all, and I think Dimitris touched on this earlier, it is important to strike the balance between regulation and business development. If you over-regulate in any industry, you tend to reduce business activity and entrepreneurship. So, as I said earlier, we have come a long way in terms of our compliance efforts. The international trend is one of transparency and substance. As far as our industry goes, there have been tremendous changes over the past 5 years in this respect. The G7 recently announced an intention for a global tax base. So all of these things create a more transparent business model, whether you're operating out of Cyprus or any other jurisdiction. One of the things that we need to tackle in Cyprus in terms of our compliance efforts is we still have traces of a tick-the-box approach. This is something that we need to get over. We need to understand what compliance really means and apply it effectively instead of applying it as a process of simply filling out forms or completing, let's say, mandatory requirements. If we understand how to apply compliance effectively, the whole, our whole effort will become a lot easier. And let's face it, compliance is a function, is a function that is, it's capital consuming for a regulated entity. It doesn't add any value in terms of its revenues. It is actually a cost. So if we are better at doing this, it means we lower our operational costs. The other thing we need to focus on in Cyprus is the fact that we have, at least for our industry, we have 3 regulatory bodies, which obviously creates, at times, it creates a sort of an unplaying, a not level playing field. And this is something that we need to address. And we need all 3 regulators to agree on some uniform regulation so that the standards, we set standards in the industry, and by setting these standards and by ensuring that all regulated entities follow the same rules and the same standards, then we increase the service offering. In terms of digitalization, I wouldn't see this as a disruption in our industry. I don't see in the way that it has changed investment firms. Our line of business is not so, let's say, IT intensive, or it doesn't evolve as quickly. What we would like to see in terms of digitalization is efforts from the government in order to digitalize and in order to change manual processes. And unfortunately, as a jurisdiction, and comparing with similar, let's say, international business destinations within the EU, we're still playing catch-up. So this is something that we need to improve massively in the next few years. Otherwise, we're going to be outdated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Godourouchis, for your valuable comments. So we will hear also the view by Mr. Taxidaris again.
Thank you, George. This is an extremely interesting topic, being also involved by profession heavily in compliance. I would like to make 4 points here. First of all, it is my view that the financial industry is quite heavily regulated globally, almost overwhelmingly actually, including in the European Union. This doesn't have to do with Cyprus specifically or CySEC. It is a global trend and is expected to continue going forward. It is indeed regulated, first of all, in a way which is often unfair for its participants compared to other segments of the financial industry, like the insurance, I would say, segment. And at the same time, it's also regulated in a way which doesn't always reflect fairly proportionality. So what I mean is that it doesn't take into account adequately the scale, nature, and complexity of each business. And this is important going forward. Secondly, I want to say that the advances and trends we observe recently have led to the rise of what we call regulatory technology or RegTech which you mentioned earlier, George, a buzzword which came effectively into existence in recent years to reflect and embrace all these new technologies in the regulatory field and in the financial industry. This will definitely grow as a trend and will be enhanced further by the standardization of technologies which are used and the uniformity of regulations across the European Union and the world. Thirdly, it is important to refer to artificial intelligence in RegTech, which is becoming again a trend, a growing trend, allowing automated solutions to learn progressively and to improve based on the past and the experience that is recorded throughout time. I do not expect, of course, the traditional compliance officer to disappear suddenly and to be replaced by machines, but I cannot imagine going forward a compliance officer who doesn't know how to use machines and software. So, especially today and in 10 years from now. Lastly, and equally important, I think it will be a challenge going forward for all regulators to keep up with technological advances. CySEC is at the forefront, as said already, but at the same time, it is a challenge to keep up and to issue regulations which are timely, especially taking into account internal policies of regulators, processes within the European Union, market consultation required, the speed at which technological advances come out and change throughout time, and other factors. So I think this last point will be a challenge also for CySEC, and it is important to work on it and stay at the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taxidaris. Thank you to both of you. I think you touched again at very important points related to the essence of stricter compliance and stricter regulation, and the challenges that it can bring both to the regulator, but the challenges that it can bring both to the market going forward. And I think we all agree that regulation will continue. This trend of higher compliance will continue. So we have to be aware of the challenges that brings forward. So I will move on now to the last question, which relates, I think, to the essence of the financial services, of the fact that the financial services should be there to provide alternative sources of financing and investing to the economy, to the real economy. So I will address this question to Mr. Christodoulidis, as a chairman of the Cyprus Stock Exchange, Mr. Leptos, and Mr. Yasemidis. So to frame the question, how do you see Cyprus can further boost the alternative forms of finance in order to complement, but also to alleviate the historical over-reliance that we have in Cyprus on bank lending and borrowing? So I will start with Mr. Christodoulidis. The floor is yours.
Thank you, George. Any exchange, as we all know, plays a very important role in every advanced economy. I would say that it is the frontispiece of the capital markets. This also should be the case for Cyprus Stock Exchange, since it can operate as a very important tool for capital raising and as an alternative tool of financing to complement other traditional means, of course, of financing in Cyprus, such as the banks, other financial institutions, and new forms of financing like funds. Cyprus Stock Exchange is very well positioned to adapt to the increasing challenges of the future, and it is ideally situated to offer alternative forms of finance. Indeed, this is traditionally one of the reasons of the existence of capital markets, as I already mentioned before. The exchange can therefore play an important role in the development of the companies and of the economy in general, especially at present times, taking into consideration the collective effort that have been put in place for overcoming the adverse effects of the financial crisis and COVID-19 pandemic that have prevailed in our country in the last years. Within this framework, the Cyprus Stock Exchange is making efforts to attract more companies for listing on the exchange, which will increase the liquidity in the market and also provide new attractive investment opportunities to domestic and foreign investors. Especially the current period, that the interest in the banks, the returns provided are not at all satisfactory, and therefore new ways of investments are needed. Cyprus Stock Exchange, as we already all know, it offers a wide spectrum of markets, products, and services. And all market participants and stakeholders can benefit accordingly, either for listing or investing or making use of CSE services. So CSE operates a regulated market, a multilateral trading facility, an MTF market, and central securities depository, and all of these are operating on advanced infrastructure and technology. Simple procedures, quick and effective processes, and with competitive pricing policies. Various markets of the exchange can be therefore utilized for different market needs and appetite for listing in the exchange. Further to different listing and investment opportunities, the exchange could also offer several other useful services by using the exchange infrastructure and capabilities that we already have. Here I would like to mention a few of the advantages that the CSE listing has. The first of all is the ability to raise capital. It offers to investors a price mechanism for every listed security on a daily basis. The companies have visibility and recognition for attracting institutional investors. Investments are made through SIFs and that fulfill the KYC and AML procedures and requirements, and this is very important. The Cyprus Stock Exchange markets can provide solutions, as I mentioned before, for different business needs and strategic goals. And the last but not least is the transparency provided, which is very important in our case in Cyprus after all these issues that we had the last period. In addition to the continuously increased need for compliance, the exchange is also focusing on the important area of digitalization and for the continuous improvement of its infrastructure. Since both parameters consist important trends for the medium to long-term development of the capital markets in the European Union, and the panelists before they gave emphasis on the digitalization, and they were very correct. As a conclusion, I would like to stress the importance of advancing the Cyprus Stock Exchange as an important tool for the development of the companies and the economy in general. And I would like, therefore, to invite all market participants to consider the framework of the exchange and the opportunities provided, and to make use of its markets, products, and services. Needless to say that the implementation of the CSE strategic plan, and more specifically the forthcoming privatization of the exchange, will significantly contribute towards the achievement of this aim. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Christodoulidis, for providing the view of how the Cyprus Stock Exchange can be a great source of raising capital, but also for providing investment opportunities to the market and the plans that you have going forward, and with the privatization plans. So I will also address now the question to Mr. Leptos. Let's hear the view by Mr. Leptos.
Well, I was covered by the president of Cyprus Stock Exchange, and also by my speech before that. It was concentrated exactly on this point. The answer is obvious. We have to go through this Cyprus Stock Exchange, which we must enhance and we must modernize in order to be able, for people to be able safely to make their investments. Loans means increased cost, lower profits, lower prices of shares, and a disadvantage, which means a disadvantage for investors to invest into the stock exchange. So we have to concentrate on this goal, and this is a role for the government to instigate. And in order to instigate, they must decide on it. Should we consider proceeding with the stock exchange, yes or no? I think the answer is yes, in view of the so many benefits and advantages we have by it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leptos. And let's hear also the view by Mr. Iasemidis as the chairman of the funds industry.
Thank you, George. Obviously, the alternative financing sector, as it's called, is rapidly evolving in the last few years. There are specific numbers that indicate it. I can say that in the US, more than 63% of the new projects is being financed through alternative ways of financing. In Europe, this percentage is slightly lower, it's 49%. Why we have seen this trend? First of all, as we know very well, the banking system has faced significant challenges in the last decade, including lack of liquidity, stricter rules regarding the loan financing and other matters. At the same time, the collective investment schemes offer a more protected way of investing, and therefore we believe that in the near future, collective investment scheme as financing tool will replace at a large extent the traditional banking lending. It's important to be mentioned that investors are more comfortable to subscribe for units in collective investment scheme because they are regulated, they are well monitored. There is a group of professionals, including risk manager, portfolio manager, compliance officer, that will monitor and manage the structuring and provide the presence of so many professionals as a layer of additional protection to the investors. And this is what we can do in Cyprus in order to move forward. First of all, I believe that we need to further educate the public regarding the investment funds, because I strongly believe that if we have investing through an informative basis in investment firm, will restore the confidence, will help to restore the view, the image of Cyprus, and at the same time will rebalance the market. So as I said before, we have now a complete legal and regulatory framework for funds in Cyprus, and through the continuous support, monitoring and checks by CySEC, I believe more and more investors will subscribe for units in a fund, and we can use these investment funds coming from foreign Cypriot investors to finance projects in all the sectors of our economy, a real project, and at the same time alleviate from the over-compliance on the banking sector. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mr. Iasemidis. Thank you to all of you. I think you all touched at some very important points, opportunities, challenges that relate to the financial services industry, and I think we had a very fruitful discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming towards the closing of our digital event. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to our distinguished speakers and panelists for their valuable contribution to our digital event on the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission. During the panel discussion, we have heard about the key role that financial technology plays in the future of our markets, the importance of compliance, and the boundless potential for alternative investments. Over the past 25 years, CySEC has seen its supervisory role widened substantially, while at the same time its responsibilities have been expanded. So to this end, in the 25 years of its presence, CySEC has worked hard in implementing key infrastructure projects that would better enable it to fulfill its mission. That is exercising effective supervision to ensure investor protection and the healthy development of the securities market. So before the closing of this digital conference, I would like to praise the work of the chairman, vice chairman, and the members of the boards of the Commission who have served through its first quarter of a century, as well as the staff of the Commission, all of whom have contributed to the development of the investment services sector with their expertise and professionalism. I would like also to give special thanks to Mrs. Kalogiru, who will be completing this coming September 10 years as the chairwoman of the Commission. As the vice chairman of the Commission since last year and a member of the board before, I had a close collaboration with Dimitra. I have seen her determination and her vision for CySEC through the tireless work and her efforts. Her invaluable impact all these years have shaped the Commission's role and importance and has paved the way for the market's growth and development. In the next years, CySEC's regulatory agenda is based on maintaining high standards of investor protection and investor confidence, which would lead to the healthy development of the market with new products and services using financial technology and innovation, and we look forward to the future with great confidence. Our deepest gratitude goes also to all of you who have joined us today from Cyprus and abroad. We are thrilled to see so many attendees join us, and we hope you enjoyed it. We will also close with another view of the video for our 25-year anniversary. So thank you all and wish you a great rest of the day.
The Cyprus Securities and Exchange Commission is the independent public supervisory authority of the securities market, one of the three authorities that regulate the financial sector in Cyprus. 2021 marks the 25 years of CySEC's presence.
In these 25 years, progress has been remarkable. From 1996 onwards, the Cyprus capital market has experienced significant growth.
The regulator's supervisory remit has widened substantially in these years to include new groups of supervised firms and products. Today, it supervises more than 790 entities, recording an increase of 217% since 2011. In addition to the stock exchange, its markets, and the issuers of securities, these include the investment firms, the administrative service providers, the management companies, and collective investment funds, and very soon, crypto exchanges. In this vein, the role and supervisory responsibilities of CySEC have been significantly expanded and upgraded to ensure investor protection in an ever-changing financial landscape. CySEC looks to actively support new financial technology products, services, and infrastructure projects, particularly those that can themselves finance startups offering innovative products. To this end, CySEC has established an innovation hub in 2018 to explore the growth and uses of financial and regulatory technology. Since the country's accession to the European Union in 2004, the national securities market legal framework was fully and promptly harmonized with all the latest EU directives and regulations. Among others, CySEC has pressed ahead for the completion of a comprehensive regulatory framework for the collective investment and asset management sector as an alternative form of financing the real economy.
It has been the strong belief of the government and of the Ministry of Finance that the development of the capital markets and the opportunities they provide can only be achieved with strong supervision of the sector and good market conduct. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Finance has been actively supporting all efforts of CySEC to enhance its capabilities, either through the enactment of legislation for the capital markets or through the significant enhancement of CySEC capacity with resources and personnel. We commit to this close cooperation and support for the years to come.
Due to the very diverse and sophisticated market participants, CySEC keeps up to date with the best supervisory practices.
We have built and applied a risk-based supervision philosophy which dictates our priorities. The rule that governs what we do is that the entities and market segments which pose greater risks to the market will be subject to the closest scrutiny.
Over the last 25 years, CySEC was gradually granted new, increased and expanded powers. As a result, it now has at its disposal the necessary dissuasive and repressive tools to ensure the regulatory compliance of the supervised entities. CySEC places great emphasis on the financial education, professionalism, innovation, as well as the standard of services offered by the entities we supervise and their employees. From 2015, all compliance officers of CIFs and traders have been obliged to pass specialized exams and to be continuously educated on regulatory matters. In 2020, these requirements were extended to cover also the AML compliance officers and soon the financial information providers of CIFs.
This has increased the level of professionalism in the sector and heightened market confidence and efficiency.
At the same time, CySEC advocates the need for public education in financial matters. To this end, it undertakes various educative actions and initiatives through publications on its website and the media. Also, it advocates for the introduction of financial education in schools. Through the years, the regulator's structure was expanded and new departments were created to meet its growing responsibilities and the development of the sector. From a staff of just one employee in 1996, CySEC now employs 121 professionals covering a wide range of specializations in finance, accounting, law, and programming. Throughout the years, CySEC maintained close cooperation and exchange of assistance, expertise, and best practices with other national competent authorities worldwide. To this end, CySEC has signed 22 bilateral memoranda of understanding and cooperation with supervisory authorities and other bodies, and 51 bilateral MOUs with supervisory authorities outside the EU, based on the European Directive on Alternative Investment Fund Managers. CySEC is an active member of the ESMA and IOSCO. The vision of CySEC and most earnest duty is to enhance the Cypriot securities market to make it one of the safest and most reliable investment destinations in Europe.